Not even close. A legion was a disciplined machine that could march all day, build a fortified camp before sunset, and then fight as one body shield to shield, step by step. In the next 15 minutes, we're breaking down the main Roman legions that shaped the empire. Caesar's most trusted veterans, the ghost legion that vanished from the records, and the frontier units that kept Rome's borders from collapsing. No complicated jargon, just the clear, practical story of how these units worked and why enemies feared them. Number 1. Legio X Equestris. Caesar's 10th Legion earned its reputation as the unit you could throw into a mess and still get a clean result. A Roman legion wasn't a random crowd. It was a system. The smallest day-to-day family was a contubernum 8 soldiers in one tent, eating from the same pot, hauling gear together, and learning fast that you survive together or you don't. 10 tents made a century, and here's the classic Roman twist. A century was often around 80 fighting men, because the label mattered less than what actually worked. 6 centuries made a cohort, and 10 cohorts made the legion roughly 5,000 men on paper when it was fully topped up. The centurion was the engine of the whole thing, half drill sergeant and half manager, the guy who made sure orders turned into action. At the heart of every legion was its eagle, the Aquila. This wasn't just decoration. It was treated like the unit's living identity. The Aquilifer who carried it sometimes wore an animal pelt over his helmet, so everyone could spot him, and so enemies could too. Losing an eagle was a disaster that could haunt Rome for decades, like after the Teutoburg Forest defeat in 9 CE, when 3 eagles were captured, and Rome later spent huge effort getting them back. Now plug the 10th into that system. During a tense meeting with Germanic leaders, Caesar didn't trust his allied cavalry as bodyguards, so he had men of the 10th ride as his escort infantrymen on borrowed horses. Someone cracked a joke that Caesar had made them knights, and the nickname Equestris stuck. In Gaul, they became his dependable hammer. Long marches, ugly sieges, sudden counterattacks. What made them scary wasn't movie-style courage, it was discipline. They'd throw pila to punch into shields and disrupt a charge, then close in tight with the gladius, staying in ranks when the other side started fighting one-on-one. And when the front line got exhausted, they could rotate fresh men forward fast, because the legion trained for that like it was a reflex. In the Civil War, the 10th also proved an uncomfortable truth. A legion's loyalty often followed the commander who fed them, paid them, and promised them a future. They didn't just fight for Rome as an idea, they fought for Caesar as a person, and that changed politics as much as any battle did. Number 2. Legio XI Gemina. If the 10th is the famous hammer, the 13th is the key that turned Rome's lock. In 49 BCE, Caesar faced a legal red line. Crossing the Rubicon with an armed force meant you weren't debating policy, you were starting a civil war. He didn't have a massive stack of legions right there. He had the 13th, seasoned from Gaul, loyal, and very aware that the Senate could drop them the moment it was convenient. The phrase, alea iacta est, the die is cast, captures the vibe. Once they stepped into that river, there was no clean way back. The 13th moved fast because Roman armies learned to travel light. After the late Republic push toward a professional army, a legionary was expected to carry a lot. Armor, weapons, tools, rations, even stakes for the camp palisade. People joked about Marius's mules, but the point was real. If every soldier carries his share, the legion isn't chained to endless wagons. That mobility mattered because Roman strategy wasn't just fighting. It was arriving, digging in, and forcing the enemy to deal with a fresh fort overnight. After Caesar's assassination and the civil wars that followed, the 13th was reorganized, and the name Gemina, twin, usually points to a merged or reinforced unit. Survivors combined, but the identity kept alive. In the imperial period, Theaned Gemina spent long stretches on the Danube frontier, the kind of posting that doesn't look glamorous on a map, but decides whether the empire sleeps at night. One month you're repairing roads and drilling recruits. The next, you're rushing to a river crossing because raiders showed up at dawn. The 13th story is basically the Roman soldier's life in a nutshell. Politics at the top, endless routine at the bottom, and sudden moments where you have to move as one body or you're done. Number 3. Legio IX Hispana. The ninth is the legion that turns history into detective work. We know it fought in Spain, hence Hispana, and later served in Britain as Rome pushed north. Archaeology ties it to York, Eboracum. Stamped tiles, inscriptions, and building records. The kind of unglamorous evidence that's actually priceless because it proves who was physically there. York wasn't a lonely outpost either. It was a major fortress that worked like a military factory. Barracks, workshops, storerooms, and a constant pipeline of supplies. Then the clear trail fades, and the legend starts. People love the dramatic version. The ninth marches into the far north and vanishes in fog and ambush. The honest version is more annoying. The legion stops showing up clearly in surviving records, and we can't say with confidence whether it was destroyed, transferred to another frontier, broken up, or renamed. One reason the mystery survives is that Rome didn't always advertise disasters. Victories got monuments, defeats often got silence. Around the time Hadrian ordered his wall across northern Britain, starting in 122 CE, we start seeing strong evidence of a different legion, 6 Victrix, at York, and that swap has fueled theories that the ninth was gone, or no longer usable as a full legion. But that's still not a smoking gun units moved for all kinds of reasons, including strategy, politics, and simple manpower needs. What the ninth really shows is the limit of our sources. Even the most organized empire on Earth can leave a blank spot big enough to swallow 5,000 men and still keep marching. And because the ending is unclear, the ninth became a ghost story you can argue about forever. Number 4. Legio V Alaudii. The fifth Alaudii is a great reminder that Rome could be brutally practical when it needed troops. Caesar recruited heavily from Gaul, including men who weren't Roman citizens, and whose families had every reason to hate Rome. Traditionalists in the Senate acted like that was madness. Caesar treated it like a simple equation. Drill them hard, pay them, and they'll fight as Romans. The nickname Alaudii means larks, probably from helmet plumes that looked like a little bird's crest cute name, serious unit. At Thapsus in North Africa in 46 BCE, Caesar's army faced war elephants. Elephants were basically ancient shock weapons, huge, loud, and designed to make infantry flinch and scatter. The fifth held formation when it mattered, using teamwork and discipline to keep from getting pushed into panic. When the elephant charge failed, the message was clear, steady ranks beat scary animals. That's why the elephant became closely linked with the legion's identity in later tradition. After Caesar, the Roman state kept reshaping its armies, and legions like the fifth ended up doing the unending frontier grind, especially along the Rhine, where the job was constant pressure. Raids, revolts, and tense standoffs across a river. During the chaos of 69-70 CE, when Rome fought itself in the year of the 4 emperors and then faced the Batavian revolt, some legions were shattered, surrendered, or absorbed into new formations. The fifth likely didn't survive intact through that storm, and that makes it a perfect example of Rome's biggest military trick. Not being invincible, but being able to rebuild units, retrain replacements, and keep the machine running even after ugly setbacks. Number 5. Legio II Augusta. Augusta is a solid pick for a main legion because its story is basically Rome's playbook in one unit. It took part in the invasion of Britain in 43 CE under Emperor Claudius, when Rome decided the island was worth the money and the headaches. One of its best-known commanders was the future Emperor Vespasian, who led tough campaigns in the southwestless Hollywood heroics, more steady grinding. Take strong points, lock down roads, secure supply, repeat. Over time, Second Augusta settled into a long posting at Isca, modern Caerleon in Wales, and that base tells you what a legion really did between battles. A legion was like a moving construction company with swords. They built roads straight enough to look modern, threw bridges over rivers, dug ditches and raised forts that turned, "We conquered this," into, "We're staying." On campaign, they didn't operate alone either. Around the heavy infantry were auxiliaries, archers, scouts, slingers, and cavalry, often recruited from peoples who had the skills Rome needed, and rewarded with citizenship after long service. Inside the fortress, you'd find workshops making nails and armor fittings, medical staff, clerks keeping pay lists, and engineers who could knock together a siege ramp or a bolt thrower platform when the situation demanded it. And because legions lived in one place for years, they left a footprint. Bathhouses, amphitheaters, temples, and a civilian town growing outside the walls to sell food, tools, and entertainment to thousands of bored soldiers. That daily routine mattered. You can't keep discipline by screaming every hour. You keep it by making the system normal. Drills, guard duty, repairs, inspections, and the constant expectation that tomorrow might suddenly turn into a fight. Number 6. Legio XIV, Gemina. XIV Gemina had a reputation for being tough even by Roman standards, and it collected honor titles like Marcia Victrix, Mars is victorious, because emperors loved a legion with a strong brand. In Britain, it played a major role in crushing Boudicca's revolt in 60 to 61 CE, when a sudden uprising destroyed Roman settlements and forced the army into emergency mode. Rome's comeback wasn't a secret trick. It was choosing ground that punished chaos. Roman commanders liked narrow approaches, so their tight formation couldn't be easily surrounded, and so the enemy's numbers turned into a traffic jam instead of an advantage. In a legion's line, you'd see the big scutum shields overlapping, Pila ready, and centurions physically pushing men back into place when fear tried to take over. That control came from training that was honestly brutal. Long pack marches in nailed boots, drilling with wooden practice swords heavier than the real blade, and building camp works until your hands went numb. After Britain, Schutzfried Gemina shows up again in the year of the four emperors in 69 CE, when Rome basically fought itself and legions had to pick sides fast. This is where you see the uncomfortable truth of the system. The same discipline that made legions unstoppable against outsiders also made them dangerous in civil war. When veterans are loyal, armed, and organized, they can decide politics with marching boots. Later, the legion spent long stretches on the Danube frontier, a place that constantly tested Rome with new coalitions and faster-moving enemies. For soldiers, that meant a life of patrols, drills, bridge repairs, winter camps, and sudden alarms. Exactly the rhythm that kept the empire standing for as long as it did. Number 7. Legio XII Fulminata. The 12th, Fulminata. The Thunderbolt spent much of its life in the eastern provinces, where Rome's opponents fought differently than in Gaul or Britain. The east meant big distances, fortress cities, and rivals like Parthia, with cavalry and horse archers that could punish slow infantry if you marched in the open like it was a parade. Fulminata had real successes, but it also had public embarrassments, and that's useful because it shows Rome wasn't invincible by default. In the Armenian conflict of the 60s CE, a Roman force including the 12th suffered a humiliating defeat and was forced into a surrender arrangement, exactly the kind of episode Roman writers didn't love talking about. After that, the legion's long-term job was border security, holding roads, guarding crossings, and sitting in forts that watched the horizon for dust clouds from incoming raids. For long stretches it was based around Melitene, near modern Malatya in Turkey, a strategic spot between mountains and river routes. Later, the legion served in Judea during the tense years of revolt and counter-revolt, where warfare was often sieges, supply lines, and exhausting security duty, rather than neat field battles. And then there's the famous story from the reign of Marcus Aurelius, a Roman army trapped and thirsty, suddenly saved by a storm rain for the Romans, chaos for the enemy, followed by the claim that lightning struck down attackers. Some sources credit the 12th, some credit prayers, and some historians see it as propaganda meant to make the emperor look favored by the gods. Either way, the legend stuck because the name Fulminata fits perfectly. With the 12th, you get the full Roman mix: hard training, bad days, and a reputation built as much by storytelling as by steel.